What's going on, everybody? This is Derek J407, and I'm here to give you my thoughts on the WWE Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, live from the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. The 2019 edition of the pay-per-view just went off the air not too long ago, and it's hard for me to talk bad about a show that had multiple title changes, a really, really hot segment with probably the biggest star in the entire company, and two incredible Elimination Chamber matches, with the latter having a fantastic final two. Just really good stuff, really good storytelling, and just really good crowd investment in the closing moments of the men's Elimination Chamber match at the end of the show. But we're gonna cap things up. We're gonna start things off, I should say, with the beginning. We're going to start with the pre-show. There we saw Buddy Murphy defending the Cruiserweight Championship against Akira Tozawa, who won this opportunity in a Fatal 4-Way match a few weeks back on 205 Live. Had a pretty good match here. Early on, there was this really cool spot where Tozawa tried to do a dive through the ropes, but Murphy caught him in midair and hit him with a suplex on the floor. So I thought that was really cool. And a little bit later, Tozawa had his own really cool spot when he had Murphy draped over the, I think it was the middle rope. He had him kind of like draped over with his upper body hanging in the ring. And he came off the top rope, the top turnbuckle, I should say, and hit a senton onto Murphy, knocking him right off the ropes. So really cool stuff. And there was a lot of really other cool moments in this match. But in the end, Murphy hit Murphy's Law to retain his championship, so good stuff here. I expect Murphy to hold on to that title until WrestleMania. It's just a matter of who's going to be the man to take the title from him. But on to the main show. The first matchup was the Women's Elimination Chamber match, a match to crown the first ever women's tag team titles, only not really the first ever tag team titles, but you know, that's their narrative that they're telling. So in this match, we had Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, the Iconics, Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, Nia Jax and Tamina, the Riott Squad members, Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan, Naomi and Carmella, who Carmella has been in, she only got in the news a few days ago, and I think yesterday, in fact, as of this recording. And of course, Sasha Banks and Bayley. So the match started out with Sasha and Bayley against Mandy and Sonya. Had a pretty good thing going on there. First ones out the pod were the Riott Squad, Liv and Sarah. They mixed it up with all the other women who were already in there. We had a big Tower of Doom spot with everyone except for Sasha, who got rammed into one of the pods and re-aggravated her shoulder injury that she's been selling ever since the Rumble. So with the Tower of Doom spot, everyone's laid out. Out comes the Iconics. Next, they try to pin everyone who's down, who's available. They just go for pin attempts on all of them. All fail, and then they proceed to dominate from that moment on, and just started to beat the hell out of everyone. They were on offense for quite a while until the next participants came out, and that was Naomi and Carmella. Carmella, of course, who was greeted to Corey Graves chants. Of course, the news came out the other day about Graves and Carmella having an affair. The news came from Graves' wife, who posted it on social media, which I don't agree with. I think something like that should be kept in-house between the people involved, but I guess she felt that it was necessary to do that. All I can really say about the situation is that I feel bad for the kids, especially Corey Graves' kids, who are completely innocent in all of this, and they're going to be affected by this, not only by their dad doing this, but by their mother putting it out there for the world to know. So it's going to be rough on them, so I pray for them. But anyway, Naomi and Carmella, they were in there. They weren't in there for very long because they were the first ones eliminated. The Iconics, they had this really cool double cradle on Naomi where I think it was Peyton who had her in a cradle pin, and Billy came over and like they were both pinning her at the same time, locked her down, and eliminated her and Carmella. Then out last was Nia Jax and Tamina, who everyone tried to go after, but they pretty much cleaned house. The Iconics, they tried to hide in a different pod, but Tamina and Nia got on two separate sides, got them out there, and just started to beat the holy hell out of them. And they both got hit with double Samoan drops, I should say. A little bit later on, Liv and Sarah were each on top of the pod, and both of them did their own individual dives on two separate people. Sarah dove off one side, dove onto Tamina, and I don't even know but it was Tamina and someone else, and Nia and someone else is who Liv dived onto. But it eventually led to Nia Jax hitting a diving Samoan drop off of the middle rope onto Liv, and then Liv and Sarah were both lined up together in the middle of the ring. Tamina hit a splash onto both of them, and they both were eliminated, so they were out. Nia and Tamina are still dominating, and now Bayley is in Nia's sights. Bayley is right in front of a pod, and Nia goes to charge at her, but Bayley sidesteps her, so Nia charges right into the pod by herself. Everyone else remaining in the ring surrounded Tamina, and they all hit a bunch of moves on her to the point where they all pinned her at the same time, so that got rid of Tamina and Nia. So it came down to the two teams that it started with, Sasha and Bayley, and Sonya and Mandy. At one point, all the women were up top on a pod. Well, most of them were. Eventually, a few of them came back down, and Sonya rammed Bayley back first into the support beam for one of the pods, so that incapacitated her for a little bit, and Sasha got rammed shoulder first into another support beam into a different pod, and she got put back in the ring. Mandy Rose hit her with some kind of angel wings type finisher. It looked like it was over, but it was just a close near fall. So Mandy continues to beat down Sasha, holds her up in position for Sonya to tackle her, but Sasha manages to break free, so Sonya takes down Mandy accidentally, and then because of Sasha's shoulder injury, she couldn't get the full rotation of her arm into the bank statement, so she had to modify the move onto Sonya a little bit, and kind of had her knees involved and all that kind of stuff, and was really torquing back on her to the point where she had no choice but to tap out. So Sasha Banks and Bayley are your first ever WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. Had a really emotional interview after the match. Sasha, of course, was crying, and they both were. And even the commentators admit, like Beth Phoenix, she was a guest commentator. You could hear it in her voice. She was crying. Renee was. Corey was playing it off like he wasn't, but he was. So it was very emotional, they talked, it was pretty much a shoot interview, because everything they said, it felt real, but, you feel great for them, like, after the year of just nothing for both of them in 2018, that was probably the worst year of Sasha and Bayley's careers, in 2018, they just did nothing. They were feuding with each other, but then the feud went nowhere. They were in an endless loop of non-stop tag team matches with the Riott Squad, which get ready for more of them now that they're tag team champions, but if they can switch back between both brands, hopefully it'll be alright. And I assume they'll be walking into WrestleMania as the tag team champions, and my prediction for who they're going to face, it's either going to be the Bella Twins or Trish Stratus and Lita. I would prefer the latter, but the former wouldn't be too bad, but those are the two teams that I see them facing, so we'll see. But yeah, great match with a great ending, a great emotional ending, and very satisfying. Congratulations to Sasha Banks and Bayley, who are more than deserving of that honor. Up next was the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match. The best tag team in the world, the Co-Besties, The Miz and Shane McMahon, defending their tag team titles for the first time against the Usos, Jimmy and Jay. before the match could start, Miz, he made his entrance and brought out Maurice, who announced that the two of them are having another child. So Maurice is once again pregnant. The fans broke out in a "You Still Got It" chant for the Miz, which he took great pleasure in hearing, and he dedicated this match to their unborn child, which was probably a mistake. Some people might have looked at that and thought, oh, well, obviously Miz and Shane are going to win now. But I looked at that like, nah, I don't think so. So the match was pretty much a basic tag team match. Nothing overly special really happened. Things really started to pick up a little down the stretch. Shane hit a coast to coast on Jimmy and took him out. He tried to go for one on Jay on the other side, but when he was in midair, Jay got up and caught him with a super kick in midair. So with Shane down, Jay goes up top, tries to hit a splash, hits it, almost gets the 3, but the Miz just barely gets in to break it. A little bit later, Miz, Shane, and Jay are all on the outside. They get Jay. Oh, actually, no, it was just Miz and Jay who were on the outside, and Miz lays out Jay, puts him on the table, holds him down on the American announce table. Meanwhile, Shane is back in the ring. He climbs up to the top turnbuckle, and he dives off all the way from the ring to the announce table, crashing onto Jey Uso right through the table. So you rarely see Shane actually hit the move, so whenever he does, it's cool to see. So back in the ring, it's down to Miz and Jimmy, and Miz ends up hitting the skull crushing finale on Jimmy, goes for the cover, but does it with his back on Jimmy. So when he kind of rolls back and covers him, Jimmy kind of rolls through and cradles Miz and pins him 1, 2, 3, and the Usos win the tag team titles once again. I don't know what number reign it is. I know it's up. It's probably got to be like 5 or 6 or something like that, you would think. So the Usos are once again the tag team champions. I had to figure Shane and Miz were going to lose those titles at some point. And I kind of figured it would be tonight, and that's despite the DUI arrest of Jimmy Uso this past week. And has all to do with the AEW effect hovering over the Usos contracts coming up in April. So yeah, I figured they would probably get the win here. Miz and Shane left together, looking depressed, and a little bit later on in the show, they showed them backstage. Shane was getting checked out by a doctor. Miz was pissed. He was throwing stuff, and Shane told him to go home, and he'd see him Tuesday. So, don't know where this is going. I think it's all obvious that it's setting up a match between Miz and Shane at WrestleMania. It's just a matter of how they're going to set it up. I assume they're going to set it up at Fastlane, but we'll see. Up next was the handicap match for the Intercontinental Championship. Yes, a handicap match for a championship. Bobby Lashley and his manager, pretty much Lio Rush, taking on Finn Balor. So, this was a match that surprised me. Lashley pretty much dominated and beat the hell out of Balor throughout the entire match. Balor had a few hope spots in there, but it was pretty much all Lashley, and Lio was a nuisance throughout the majority of it. And when it looked like Lashley was about to finish up Balor, was setting up to hit him with a spear, Lio blind tags himself into the match and comes in, tells Lashley it's okay, I got this, and he goes up top for a splash and he misses. So then Balor makes a comeback. He fights off Lio Rush. He disposes of Lashley, so he's not in the picture. And then when it comes down to him and Lio, he takes down Lio, goes up top, hits the coup de grace, and gets the win. He pins Bobby Lashley's manager to win Bobby Lashley's championship. So Finn Balor is, for the first time in his career, Intercontinental Champion. I did not see Balor winning the title before WrestleMania, but it was definitely interesting. I can't be upset with it. It was really cool to see. But yeah. I guess it was a way to take the belt off of Lashley and still protect him. So, and he definitely was still protected because he got his heat back after the match. Balor escaped and left, and Lashley pretty much beat the hell out of Lio Rush. He teased like he was about to attack him, but then he didn't. He kind of backed off. Then he went back in, lifted him up, and just slammed him splat onto the mat. So it looks like this is the end of their pairing, which I don't know about that. I kind of liked the two of them together. It's good for Lashley to have a mouthpiece. So I don't know if they're just going to put someone else with him or if they're going to work this out and it might end up being like an abusive relationship kind of thing. I don't know what they're going to do. I just don't think I think it's best for Lashley to have a mouthpiece. He's not awful on the mic, but it fits Lashley a little bit better to have him with someone who can talk for him. So, we'll see where they go from here. Up next, Ronda Rousey and Ruby Riott for the Raw Women's Championship. Charlotte, who of course replaced Becky Lynch as Ronda's opponent for WrestleMania after Vince suspended Becky for 60 days this past week on Raw, after Becky already apologized to Triple H and Stephanie. So stupid. Anyway, Charlotte was in the ring. She cut a promo, a heel promo, and she sat there ringside to watch this match. Ronda was wearing her Sonya Blade gear. She is the voice of Sonya Blade in the new Mortal Kombat video game coming out soon. So, this match between Ronda and Ruby, the whole build-up to this match, which was like a week's worth of build-up, was Ruby telling everyone that she should not be overlooked, she should not be looked past by Ronda, she should be taken seriously as a serious threat to Ronda's championship. Now, we all knew Ruby didn't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning this match, but that did not mean anyone wanted to see her get beaten in like 2 minutes. Ruby went right after Ronda for like the first couple seconds, and after that, Ronda was pretty much whooping her ass to the point where later on she locked in the armbar and got the win. It was barely 2 minutes. And then right after that, all the other stuff happened and Ruby Riott was an afterthought. So all that stuff about Ruby not wanting to be an afterthought and all the people, all the commentators saying like, don't overlook Ruby, it was for nothing. So, yeah, Ruby was pretty much an afterthought. So after the match, Ronda's still in the ring, Charlotte gets in the ring, and then from afar in the crowd, we see Becky Lynch hobbling out there on crutches. She makes her way through the crowd into the ring. There's no security stopping her. No one comes out to prevent her from getting in the ring or anything like that. She just gets right in the ring. Charlotte's mocking her for her injured leg. They did an angle on a house show where she re-injured Becky's leg, so she's in there, she's on crutches, and then she takes the crutches and just starts wailing away on Charlotte and just beats the holy hell out of her with it. She takes one of them. The other one, she lets Ronda have and kind of eggs her on to beat down Charlotte with it. And when Ronda had her back turned to Becky, Becky started to unload crutch shots on her. She started to beat the hell out of Ronda with it to the point where she got Ronda pretty good with one shot and busted open Ronda's head on the side of her head. She had a pretty nasty cut on the side of her head. So hopefully that's not a concussion of any kind. She was not holding back with those shots with the crutch on both Ronda and Charlotte. Then finally, after beating down both the women's champion and the number one contender, finally some officials and security and all that kind of stuff came out to take Becky away. She didn't really get handcuffed, but her arms were behind her back and she got taken away back through the crowd. So Stone Cold Becky Lynch has her other moment. I don't know if it's this week on Raw or next week, but the Ric Flair birthday celebration that they're promoting is going to be coming up soon. So you know Becky Lynch is going to interrupt that, and that's going to somehow lead to, I'm sure, a match with Becky and Charlotte, where if Becky wins, she'll get added back to the match. Her suspension will be lifted, and she'll get added back to the match, and it'll become a triple threat. I could see the match with her and Charlotte being like an unsanctioned match or something like that, just to explain how Becky can, or her suspension is lifted, and then she gets to do the match. I don't know, but we'll see. Or instead of if Becky wins, she's added to the match, they could do if Becky wins, she gets her spot back and Charlotte's out and Becky's back in, and they keep it one-on-one. But I feel like they've infused Charlotte into this, so she's going to stay in it, and we're getting the triple threat. So, however they do it, it'll be very interesting to see going forward. I mean, you could tell by the crowd reaction here in the match and during the segment, the fans are loving Becky Lynch. She's the top star in the entire company. And it's just a matter of time before she locks Vince McMahon in an armbar too, and goes to WrestleMania and walks out with the championship in the main event of the show. So, there you go. This whole stuff immediately transitioned into the next match, which was a no disqualification match between Baron Corbin and Braun Strowman. Remember back at a time when Braun Strowman was actually cared about by the fans? Yeah, me too. I do remember that. And it's sad when you can see point by point, step by step, how a top star's career dies. But WWE did an effective job of killing Braun Strowman's main event push and making him just another guy on the roster who no one really cares about. So, good job on their part. This match was filled with a bunch of kendo stick shots. I think some chairs were involved, and it consisted pretty much of Braun kicking Corbin's ass. And at one point, Braun pulled out a table, set it up in the corner, and gave Corbin a power slam through the table, and it looked like it was over. But at that point, McIntyre's music hit. Drew McIntyre, that is. He came out through the entranceway with a steel chair. Braun Strowman was gearing up in the ring, ready for him to come out, and out of nowhere, from behind, Lashley comes in with a steel chair to the back of Braun Strowman. The two of them beat down Braun, and Baron joins in, and all three of them are beating him down. Drew and McIntyre, oh my gosh. Drew and Lashley, they brought in two steel steps, put them side by side, and then they stacked two tables on top of each other. They get Braun up, all three of them hit a triple power bomb onto Braun. In the end, Corbin pinned Braun, and that was it. So the commentators were telling the story that Braun has no friends, so we'll see if that plays a factor into anything. Kevin Owens is supposed to be returning within a month, so I don't know, maybe a 6-man tag team match with the 3 heels against Braun, Kurt Angle, and Kevin Owens. Honestly, it doesn't even matter. Up next, Lacey Evans came out, made her entrance, and then walked right back to the back. No idea why they did that, but whatever. And then we get to the main event. The WWE Championship Elimination Chamber match. For the first time in almost a year, definitely since March of last year, we had the WWE Championship match close a pay-per-view. That's probably the longest stretch of the WWE title not ending a pay-per-view that I can recall. But, yeah. And I think it's the first time since the brand split that the WWE title match ended a co-branded pay-per-view. So, even worse. Because the brand split started in 2016 and is now 2019. So, that's pretty bad. But either way, it was the new Daniel Bryan, defending against Samoa Joe, Randy Orton, AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, and the replacement for Mustafa Ali, Kofi Kingston, who made himself a big, heavy contender in this match after running the gauntlet the previous week on SmackDown and wrestling for over an hour, or almost an hour, I should say. So we start things off with a Daniel Bryan promo. Rowan was sent to the back, and Bryan was pissed that he had to start off the match. And he started off with Samoa Joe, and Samoa Joe proceeded to chop the shit out of Daniel Bryan, giving him some very stiff chops. Kofi Kingston was the first one out of the pod. At one point, Bryan climbed up one of the pods and sat Indian style up top. Kofi hopped up onto the top turnbuckle and then hopped up on top of the pod, faced Bryan, and started to unload punches on him. The two got off the top and just started to scale along the cage, and Joe yanked Bryan down, and with both Bryan and Joe on the floor, Kofi just did a backwards dive, pretty much a trust fall, onto both men to lay them out. AJ Styles was the next one out of his pod. Bryan climbed again. He didn't reach the top of the pod, but he did climb the chamber again, and this time AJ caught him with a phenomenal forearm right to his back and knocked him off. A little bit later, Samoa Joe locked Kofi in the coquina clutch. Kofi tried to do the step off the turnbuckle and do a roll-up type thing. That's how he eliminated Joe from the gauntlet match the previous week on SmackDown, but Joe managed to avoid it, kept the clutch in, but then Kofi hit him with a jawbreaker, and then AJ came off with the forearm and eliminated Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe is the first one eliminated in this match, after being the first one eliminated off Team SmackDown at Survivor Series. So, yeah. Hard to take Samoa Joe seriously anymore. Out next was Jeff Hardy, who hit a swanton bomb onto AJ Styles, and this was really cool. AJ was laid out on the top turnbuckle, and Jeff hit the swanton onto AJ while he was on top of the turnbuckle, so I thought that was cool. But not a lot of time to savor that moment, because he immediately got hit with a running knee from Daniel Bryan, who eliminated him. So Jeff was out pretty quickly. Then AJ was setting up for the phenomenal forearm on Kofi Kingston, and once he got up onto the top rope, Randy, he didn't catch him with RKO in midair. Instead, he RKO'd him off of the top rope. He kind of just pulled him into position and gave him an RKO right there and eliminated him. And then it wasn't too long after that Randy Orton got caught with trouble in paradise from Kofi to get eliminated himself. So it came down to Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship, the final two men inside the chamber, and the fans were losing their shit. They were going crazy for Kofi Kingston. And there was a lot of really cool near falls. Early on, Kofi hit an SOS, which was a really good near fall. The two were fighting it out all around the chamber. Kofi had Bryan on the outside of the ring around the fence part of it, was shoving Bryan's face into the fence, and he was going for a bulldog into a pod, but Bryan kind of reversed it and just launched Kofi into the pod himself. So I thought that was really cool. He gets him back in the ring, hits him with the running knee, but it's only good for a 2 count. Very close 2 count. So Kofi's not done yet. Then Bryan holds his arms up, Kofi's that is, and just delivers a bunch of foot stomps right onto Kofi's face. Goes for another pin attempt, only good for a 2 count. Then he gets Kofi in the corner, gives him a bunch of corner drop kicks, and then going for like the 5th or 6th one, Kofi catches him with the Trouble in Paradise, goes for a cover, and then Bryan turns that into a roll-up, a schoolboy almost, and tries to get his own cover, but it was only good for a 2 count. Bryan eventually locked in the label lock, a modified version of it, but Kofi managed to get to the bottom rope, so Kofi is still alive. Both men get to the top of one of the pods, and both of them are just slamming each other's heads into the glass that's up there. And eventually, Kofi knocks Bryan off of the pod. So Bryan's laid out in the middle of the ring, and Kofi is up top. He goes for a splash off of the top, but Bryan rolls out of the way. Kofi crashes and burns, and then Bryan charges himself up, lunges at him with another running knee and gets the 1, 2, 3. You could feel the air come out of the crowd when the referee hit that 3 and Bryan won. They were not happy to see Kofi lose, and they didn't even boo. It was one of those situations where it was just complete silence, and they were just completely upset that Kofi lost. So Bryan won. Rowan came back to help Bryan get out of the chamber and leave. They left not up the rampway, but off of the rampway, so they kind of went the back way. And then Kofi gets up. He's still in the ring. Big E and Xavier Woods come out. They help him up. The crowd's giving him a standing ovation, saying, "Thank you, Kofi." They play the New Day's music as Big E and Woods help him up the ramp, but they stop and turn around and let Kofi face the crowd again. They're giving him encouraging words and all that kind of stuff. And they stop the music and just kind of end it with the crowd really giving Kofi his respect, and then they go off the air. Like I said, and the match itself was really good, but the finishing sequence between Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan, that last 10 or so minutes, 10 to 15 minutes it was incredible. And the stuff between the two of them in that gauntlet match went like 20-something minutes, and that also was incredible. So that's two really good matches between Daniel Bryan and Kofi Kingston. And not for nothing, Kofi won the first one in the gauntlet. Bryan won here in the chamber. So I would love a proper one-on-one match between Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship at some point. A lot of people on my timeline and on Twitter in general were calling for this to be the WWE title match at WrestleMania. I don't see it, but it could happen on an episode of SmackDown between then. It could even happen at Fastlane. I am no fan of having Fastlane. I think it's a pointless pay-per-view to have. You already have the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. You don't need another one before WrestleMania, but they're doing it, and you need a title match on that show. I think Bryan defending against Kofi could be really cool. So, I say do it. I say have Luke Harper return, pair up with Bryan and Rowan, and have Harper and Rowan in Bryan's corner, and have E and Woods in Kofi's corner, and do that kind of a match. So, I'm all in favor of that. But, yeah, if you didn't believe Kofi was a main event level talent here, or if you forgot, I think the gauntlet and this match, especially the finish with him and Bryan, really proved it. So, it's hard to give a show like this a thumbs down. I was not a fan of what they did to Ruby Riott, but the stuff with Becky was really cool. Not the biggest fan of Balor winning the IC title in a handicap match, but it is what it is. He still won. 3 title changes on this show, a really hot segment with Becky Lynch, and 2 really good chamber matches. One with an extremely satisfying ending with Sasha and Bayley winning, and the other depressing with Bryan beating Kofi, but still a feel-good moment for Kofi Kingston to get that love from the crowd and get the respect and be positioned as a main event tier talent for the first time in years in the eyes of the fans. So hopefully it goes somewhere, at least into Fastlane. If they want to do it at WrestleMania, I mean, I could probably think of a few other people who I'd rather see Bryan face at WrestleMania, but if that's what they want to do, go ahead and do it. But to me, overall, top to bottom, a good show. Carried by the 2 chamber matches, of course, but still pretty good. So speaking of Fastlane, next time I'll talk to you guys will be to review WWE Fastlane. So until then, I will check all you later.